Hi, you might be in the situation where I am, where you have a child who's neurotypical and also a child with special needs, and you're wondering, how the heck do I do estate planning in that type of situation? Well, in this video, we're going to look all into the different nuances and ideas that you might want to consider when you're setting up your estate plan and you have children with differing abilities. So in my family, I have a son who's about to turn 10. His name is Caleb. He's wonderful, and he's also on the autism spectrum. He has high functioning autism, and I don't know if he's going to be able to work and support himself full-time or not. And then I have my younger son, Isaac, who's neurotypical, and my guess is he'll be able to work and support himself, but I don't know for sure. So one thing I do want to say is, especially if you have kids who are younger, it's really important to check in with your estate planning attorney every 3 to 5 years to see how they develop. I have worries that maybe one of my children might develop a mental health challenge, and maybe that would make it harder. And usually that doesn't manifest until early 20s perhaps, right? So different things can happen along the way, but we always want to do planning as if we're going to be gone in a year. All right, so you look at snapshot, okay, here's my current situation, let's do planning for that, and then we can always look ahead, and if the situation changes, you can always change with it. So the first thing to think about when you're doing your estate plan is, how are my children going to inherit the money? I mean, this is really the big issue, right? Let's say for Caleb and Isaac, are they going to get their inheritance 50-50? Does one of them need more money? A lot of times my clients will think, well, you know, my child who can't work and support themselves, they're going to need more money to last throughout their lifetime than my neurotypical child who can work and support themselves. But some parents think the opposite, where they say, well, you know, my child who can work and support themselves, they can really invest the money wisely, and maybe they can start a business and they'll need more, whereas my child with developmental disabilities, they might be in a group home, they might not need a whole lot, and so we'll leave them less. So that's something for you to think through, is how do you want to allocate the money between the kids? Now, a lot of times we want to treat the kids equally. I know my boys are really into feeling like they're being treated equally, even if they may not have the same abilities. Okay, so one thing I sometimes suggest is, in the trust, you leave things 50-50, but you may have other assets, like say a retirement account, that you can leave to one of the children instead. So the trust looks like it's equal, but when you look at all the different baskets where the child might be receiving things, you know, the life insurance policy might go to one of the children or their trusts, or the retirement account, as I mentioned, might go to one of the children, or might go, you know, 75%, 25%. So think about the different buckets of assets you have and how you might want to leave those to the children. Okay, another thing to think about is, how should your child inherit those assets? All right, so we've already talked on different videos that I encourage you to watch about special needs trusts. So most children with disabilities might need a special needs trust to inherit their money so that they can protect their public benefits, and also so they're protected against financial predators. Somebody else is managing their money on their behalf. And then perhaps you can set up a sibling as trust protector. All right, when you have two children, especially my kids, they're 19 months apart. All right, they're pretty close in age, and there's a lot of bickering, and they don't, you know, they wouldn't do well if one of them was in charge of the other one's money, especially the younger one. Oh my goodness, if the younger one, you know, if Isaac were in charge of Caleb's money, it would be like game over, you know, big explosions, right? So we don't want that. So I'm not going to name Isaac, if we set up a special needs trust for Caleb, I'm not going to name Isaac as trustee of Caleb's special needs trust. Instead, I would name a different family member, or better yet, a professional. There's private professional fiduciaries out there. There's banks that will act as trustee of Caleb's special needs trust if we set it up that way, right? And then Isaac could be the trust protector. He could be the overseer of the trust, so he could remove and replace the trustee if they're not working out. So I found that that type of planning can really help with family harmony, because now Isaac is set up as the rescuer, the savior, if things go wrong with the trustee, and also the overseer. But Isaac can live his best and most fruitful life without feeling like now he's the surrogate financial parent for Caleb, which Caleb would resent in any case. So during this process, I often recommend to my clients to speak with your children, especially if you have adult children, about what are their wishes. You might think that your neurotypical child is just fine managing things for their special needs sibling, but deep down they're really wishing that they didn't have this responsibility. Or your special needs child might say, well, actually I really trust Uncle so-and-so or cousin so-and-so and I'd rather have them. So it's really good. I think the more transparency with the family, the better, especially in terms of family dynamics when you're gone. A transition of a parent dying for anybody, a neurotypical person or a special needs person, can be quite traumatic and difficult. And so you want to line up things so at least the flow of the money and assets doesn't cause friction and everybody knows what it is. So also, after you're done with your estate plan, a lot of times I recommend that parents sit down with their kids and say, okay, this is how we've chosen to have things structured. So we don't want any surprises. So this is us. This is not one of the kids trying to twist the parent's arm and say, hey, I want more to go to me or someone else. This is what we've set up, and this is why we've set it up. Now remember that I said that most kids, maybe they're not as much like Caleb, who's very much like justice and equality for all, right? That, most kids may not be quite that strict, but a lot of times they want to be treated equally, right? So if you have a trust set up for your special needs child, a lot of times the special needs child will handle it better if there's a trust set up for the neurotypical child as well. We have trusts called Dynasty Trusts or Lifetime Trusts that are very helpful for your neurotypical child because they have issues too. I remember when Caleb was first diagnosed with high functioning autism at age 4, and all of our focus was on Caleb, right? Isaac was just kind of along for the ride, but Caleb got the pivotal response therapy. We did a lot of the early intervention with him. And Isaac, honestly, we tried to love up on him, but he just didn't get as much attention, right? You want to make sure that your neurotypical child gets a lot of good focused attention when you're looking at your estate plan. And setting up a dynasty trust for your neurotypical child can be a very good choice because your child can manage the trust themselves. In that way, it's different than the special needs trust, but it's still a lifetime trust that's protective for each child. So each child can feel like, okay, well, I get mine in a trust and my sibling gets theirs in the trust. We're all being treated the same. Now the trust might have different terms, but ultimately you're setting it up. Your child may not be super happy about it. Maybe the disabled child still wants to manage their own money and that they can't for different reasons. So they may not be 100% on board, but at least they know that things are fair between them and their sibling. So now you have a better idea of how to approach estate planning when you have unique situations within your family. To get a better idea about setting up a special needs trust in California, I suggest that you go to this video where we talk all about setting up special needs trusts to make sure that your loved one with disabilities is protected.